Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, The English Globe. I hope you all are doing great today. My name is Adam, and I'm really happy that you are here with us again. In today's episode, we are going to talk about something that can really help you not only in your English learning journey, but also in your life. This topic is all about the things we stopped doing that changed our lives completely, and we mean it in a very positive way.
Hi everyone, I'm Julia, and I'm also very excited about this podcast. Adam and I will be sharing 10 important things that we stopped doing in our daily lives. These were things that were holding us back, making us feel tired, sad, or unproductive. But when we decided to stop doing them, our lives became better. We felt more free, more positive, and more focused on our goals. We want to share this experience with you in a simple and clear way.
This podcast is especially made for beginner English learners, so don't worry. We will speak slowly and clearly. We will use basic vocabulary. And after each topic, we will also explain a few new words or phrases that can help you speak better English. So this is not only a motivational podcast, but also a chance to improve your English listening and vocabulary skills in a fun way.
Yes, and we also want you to think about your own life as you listen. Ask yourself, what are the things I should stop doing? Maybe you will recognize some of the habits we talk about today in your own life. And that's a good thing, because becoming aware is the first step to making real change. Even small changes can have a big effect on your future, your success, and your happiness.
So, in this podcast, we'll talk about 10 habits or actions that we personally stopped doing. These are things that were making our lives more difficult. Each of us will share our own story, explain why we stopped doing it, and how it helped us. We'll also stop for a vocabulary break after each one to teach you some useful English expressions and words. And at the end, we'll have a review and some fun practice.
If you want to really improve your English, it's important to listen to long conversations like this. It helps your brain get used to English sounds, grammar, and natural speaking rhythm. Even if you don't understand everything, that's okay. Just keep listening. Over time, your understanding will grow and you will feel more confident speaking English.
All right, so now let's get started with the first thing I stopped doing that really changed my life. It's something I used to do almost every day, and it made me feel bad about myself. But when I stopped, I felt free and happier. Are you ready? The first thing I stopped doing is comparing myself to others. For many years, I used to look at other people and compare myself to them. I would see someone who had a better job, more money, a bigger house, or a more exciting life, and I would feel bad about myself. I used to think, why am I not like that person? Why don't I have what they have? It made me feel sad and small. I didn't feel good enough, and it affected my self-confidence and motivation every single day.
That's something I understand very well, Adam. I used to do the same. Especially on social media, it's easy to see pictures of people smiling, traveling, buying expensive things, or being very successful. But what we forget is that people only show their best moments. We don't see their struggles, their pain, or their real problems. We think their life is perfect, but it's not true. We compare our real life to their highlights, and that's very dangerous.
Exactly, Julia. When I realized that comparing myself to others was making me unhappy, I decided to stop. I started focusing on myself, on my own journey, my goals, and my progress. I told myself that everyone has a different life. Everyone is walking a different path. Some people reach success early. Others take more time. And that's okay. Life is not a race. When I stopped comparing, I felt more free. I felt more peace in my heart.
Yes, and it also helps us to grow in a healthy way. Instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, we can think, I'm learning and I'm growing. That simple change in thinking can help a lot. I remember one day, I saw a quote that said, "The only person you should compare yourself to is the person you were yesterday." That quote helped me. It reminded me that real success is becoming better than I was before, not better than someone else.
That's a great quote, Julia. And when I stopped comparing, I also started to feel more thankful for what I already had. I looked at my life and said, wow, I have a lot to be grateful for. I have food, I have health, I have friends, and I have the chance to grow. That made me more positive. Instead of focusing on what I didn't have, I focused on what I did have. And that helped me feel more confident and happy each day.
That's so true. And for our listeners, we want to tell you, if you are comparing yourself to others, please stop. You are enough just as you are. Your journey is special. Your progress is important. Don't let someone else's success make you feel bad. Instead, let it inspire you. Use it as motivation, but don't feel like you are behind. You are growing at your own pace, and that is something to be proud of.
Now let's take a short vocabulary break. We used some useful words and phrases in this part. The first word is compare. To compare means to look at two things and see how they are different or similar. For example, I used to compare my life to others. The next word is confident. To feel confident means to feel sure about yourself. When you stop comparing, you become more confident in your own abilities.
Another useful word is journey. A journey is a long trip, but we also use this word to talk about personal growth. Your journey in life, or your English journey, means your process of learning and growing. And one more phrase is at your own pace. This means doing something slowly or quickly in the way that is best for you. You don't have to rush. You are learning and living at your own pace.
Great vocabulary, Julia. Now let's quickly review this point. The first thing I stopped doing that changed my life was comparing myself to others. It made me feel small and unhappy, but when I stopped doing it, I felt more peaceful, more thankful, and more focused on my own goals. I started living my life for me, not for what I saw other people doing. That made a big difference in my confidence and happiness.
And we hope you can try the same. Ask yourself today, do I compare myself to others too much? If yes, maybe it's time to stop and start focusing on your own beautiful journey. Everyone has different strengths. Everyone learns in different ways. And you are doing great just by listening to this podcast and trying to grow. We are proud of you, and we believe in you. Keep going.
All right. That was the first thing we stopped doing. Are you ready for the second one? It's also something very common, and it can take a lot of your time and energy if you don't stop it. The second thing we stopped doing is saying yes to everything. Let's talk about that next.
There was a time in my life when I used to say yes to everyone and everything. If someone asked me for help, I said yes. If someone invited me to a party, I said yes. If someone needed extra work done, I said yes. Even when I was tired or busy. I thought saying yes made me kind, helpful, and polite. But after some time, I started feeling very tired. I had no time for myself. I was always running around, trying to make others happy, while I felt exhausted inside. I didn't realize it, but always saying yes was hurting my health and peace of mind.
I completely understand that, Julia. I also used to say yes because I didn't want to disappoint people. I thought if I said no, people would think I was selfish or lazy. But what I learned is this. When you say yes to everything, you are actually saying no to yourself. You lose your personal time, your energy, and even your happiness. I remember one weekend when I promised to help 3 different friends, and I had no time to rest. On Monday, I was so tired I couldn't work well. That was when I realized sometimes it's okay to say no.
Yes. And the truth is that when we say no with kindness, most people understand. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It simply means you respect your own time and your own limits. When I started saying no, I began to feel more free. I had time to relax, to think, and to take care of myself. And you know what? The people who really cared about me didn't get upset. They supported me. And those who didn't respect my no were usually the ones who were only thinking about themselves. That helped me choose better friends too.
Exactly. One important lesson I learned is that we can't do everything, and we shouldn't try to. Life is not about making everyone happy. It's about finding balance, helping others when we can, but also taking care of ourselves. Now, when someone asks me for something, I take a moment to think. I ask myself, do I have the time? Do I have the energy? Will this make me feel stressed later? If the answer is yes, I say no politely. I learn to use kind words like, I'm really sorry, but I can't help this time. And that's enough.
Let's now take a short vocabulary break. The first word is exhausted. If you feel exhausted, it means you are very, very tired. Saying yes too much can make you feel exhausted. The next word is limit. A limit is the point where you must stop. Knowing your limits means understanding how much you can do before it becomes too much. Another phrase we used was peace of mind. This means feeling calm inside your heart. When you say no sometimes, you protect your peace of mind.
Great words, Julia. One more useful phrase is kind but firm. This means being nice when you say no, but also clear. For example, thank you for asking, but I have other plans. That's kind but firm. Now let's quickly review. The second thing we stopped doing that changed our lives was saying yes to everything. It made us tired, stressed, and unhappy. But when we learned to say no in a kind way, we got our time and energy back. We felt more calm, more happy, and more in control of our life.
So, dear listener, ask yourself, do I say yes too often? If you do, it's okay. Many people do, but maybe today is the day you start learning to say no when you need to. You can still be a kind person. You can still help others. But remember, you are important too. Your time, your health, and your happiness matter. Saying no sometimes doesn't make you rude. It makes you wise. And with practice, it becomes easier.
All right, that was the second habit. Are you ready for the next one? This one is very common these days, and it can take away your focus and time if you're not careful. The third thing I stopped doing that changed my life was spending too much time on social media. Let's talk about that next. A few years ago, I realized that I was spending too much time on my phone, especially on social media apps like Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And what surprised me most was how quickly time passed when I was scrolling. I would open my phone in the morning just to check a few posts, and suddenly 30 or even 40 minutes were gone. I thought I was just relaxing, but the truth was that I was wasting valuable time without gaining anything useful. I wasn't learning anything new, I wasn't building real friendships, and I wasn't doing anything that helped me grow. I was just scrolling endlessly, day after day, without a clear reason or benefit.
That's exactly how I felt too, Adam, and it started to affect my mood and my energy every day. I followed so many people online, and many of them posted perfect pictures of their lives, beautiful vacations, expensive clothes, happy families, and big success. Even though I knew those pictures weren't always real, I still felt like my life wasn't good enough, and that made me feel sad and unmotivated. Social media was supposed to be fun, but instead it started making me feel anxious and distracted. I couldn't concentrate on my goals or my work because my brain always wanted to check the next post or the next video.
The biggest change came when I decided to take a break from social media for 1 full week. At first, it was very difficult. I kept reaching for my phone without thinking, just like a habit. But after 2 or 3 days, I noticed something amazing. I had so much extra time in my day. I used that time to read a book, go for a walk, cook healthy food, and even talk to my friends in person. I felt more present, more alive, and more in control of my day. That 1 week helped me understand how much power social media had over my time, my energy, and even my emotions, and I didn't want to go back to that again.
That's so inspiring, Adam, and I think many of our listeners feel the same way. Social media can be useful when we use it in a smart way. For example, to learn English, to stay connected with family, or to find motivation. But when we use it too much or use it without purpose, it can take over our minds and make us forget what's really important. I also started setting limits on my apps, like using them for only 30 minutes a day. I turned off notifications and chose specific times to check messages. These small changes helped me protect my time and focus on things that truly matter in life.
Now let's take a short vocabulary break to help our listeners. The first phrase is scrolling endlessly. This means moving your finger on the screen again and again to look at more posts or videos without stopping. Another important word is present. When we say, I feel more present, it means we are truly living in the moment, not thinking about other things or being distracted. And finally, we use the word habit. A habit is something you do often, almost without thinking. Checking your phone again and again can become a habit, even if it doesn't help you.
Great words, Adam. Now let's do a quick review. The third thing we stopped doing was wasting too much time on social media. It may look fun, but it can take away your focus, your peace, and your time. When you spend hours watching others live their lives, you forget to live your own. But when you take control, even just for a few days, you will feel more free, more focused, and more alive. Try it and see the change for yourself.
That's a very important lesson, Julia. And now it's time to move on to the fourth habit. This next one is something that many people do without thinking, and it can stop you from growing, learning, and reaching your dreams. The next habit I stopped was waiting for the perfect time to start. Let's dive into that next. When I look back at the years I spent just thinking, planning, and dreaming without doing, I feel both sad and surprised, because during those times, I believed I was preparing. But in reality, I was avoiding the hard work and the fear of starting something new. And when I finally made the decision to act, even if the conditions were not perfect, I discovered that doing something imperfectly was 10 times more powerful than doing nothing perfectly, because every step I took, no matter how small, brought me closer to my goals, while waiting had only kept me stuck in the same place for far too long.
Yes, and I remember how many people used to tell me, "You're not ready yet," or "Wait until next year when you're more confident." And for a long time I believed them, because I didn't trust my own ability to learn or to try. But one day I realized that if I listened to those voices forever, I would never begin. And so I made a decision that changed my life. I told myself, I am going to start now, even if I feel nervous, even if I make mistakes, and even if it doesn't go perfectly. And from that moment, everything began to change, because I was no longer stuck in fear.
And sometimes people don't realize that the longer you wait to begin something, the harder it becomes, because the fear in your mind grows bigger over time, and the longer you stay still, the more you doubt yourself and lose the excitement and energy to move forward. But when you take that first step, even if it's small, you break the mental wall that's been holding you back, and suddenly you start seeing new ideas, new paths, and new strengths that you didn't know were inside you, simply because action brings clarity, while waiting only brings confusion and doubt.
Exactly. And when I started learning English more seriously, I didn't have the best tools or the best environment. In fact, I didn't even have good internet connection most days. And sometimes I had to study in noisy places or practice when I was tired after work, but I didn't let those things stop me because I told myself, if I can't do it perfectly, I will still do it anyway. And by staying consistent and choosing progress over perfection, I was able to improve a lot faster than I thought possible. And now I feel proud that I didn't wait for the perfect time to begin.
That's a great point, Julia, and it reminds me of something I once heard. Success doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who act, adjust, and keep going. And that idea helped me so much, especially when I started creating videos, because I used to wait until my camera was perfect, or until I found the right background, or until I felt confident enough. But after months of delaying, I just recorded a simple video and posted it. And yes, it wasn't perfect, but people liked it. And more importantly, I had finally started, and that beginning gave me the courage to continue and improve.
So true, Adam. And for our listeners who are learning English or working on their goals, we want to say this: don't wait for perfect timing, because that timing may never come. And what really matters is that you show up each day, do your best, and keep going, even when it feels difficult, even when you make mistakes, because every time you try, you grow a little more, and over time, all those small steps will lead to big changes that can completely transform your life, just like they did for us.
Let's take another quick vocabulary break. The first word is adjust, which means to make small changes to something so it works better. The next word is consistent, which means doing something regularly without stopping. We also use the phrase mental wall, which means a feeling in your mind that stops you from trying new things. And finally, we said progress over perfection, which means it's more important to improve a little bit than to try to be perfect every time.
Great vocabulary, Adam. And now let's go a little deeper. I want to talk about one more idea that really helped me. Starting small is still starting, and this idea changed the way I approached everything in my life. Because in the past, I believed that if I couldn't make a big change or do something impressive, then I shouldn't try at all. But that belief stopped me from starting, and it made me think I had to be amazing from the very beginning, which is never true, because real change always begins with tiny steps, and even 5 minutes of practice or one small action can create momentum that grows day by day.
That's a very powerful mindset, Julia, and it reminds me of how children learn to walk. They don't begin by running or walking perfectly. They start by crawling, falling, standing up again, and slowly learning how to move better each day, and no one expects them to be perfect. So why do we expect that from ourselves as adults? We need to give ourselves the same patience, the same kindness, and the same space to grow step by step, without pressure to be perfect right away. Because when you give yourself permission to be a beginner, you also give yourself the chance to become great over time. One of the most powerful changes I made in my life was realizing that trying to please everyone around me was not only impossible, but also harmful to my happiness and growth. Because when you constantly focus on what others want or expect from you, you lose sight of your own goals, values, and well-being. And this endless cycle of seeking approval can make you feel exhausted, anxious, and even resentful over time, which is why learning to say no and set healthy boundaries became a turning point for me. Once I accepted that it's okay not to satisfy everyone, and that prioritizing myself is essential, I began to experience more peace and clarity in my life. And I want all our listeners to understand this deeply, because your mental and emotional health deserve your attention just as much as your work or relationships.
That's so true, Adam, and I think it's important for our listeners to know that saying no is not rude or selfish, but actually an act of self-respect and self-care. And I also learned that people-pleasing often comes from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of disappointing others, or fear of being alone. But the reality is that true friends, family, and colleagues will respect your honesty and your limits. And when you set clear boundaries, you create relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation, which makes those connections stronger and more genuine. And it's important to remind yourself that your time and energy are valuable resources that need to be protected so that you can be your best self for yourself and for others.
Exactly, Julia. And I want to encourage everyone listening to practice this by starting small. When someone asks you to do something that you don't really want to do, or that doesn't fit into your schedule or values, try responding with a polite but firm no, such as, "I appreciate the invitation, but I need to focus on other priorities right now." Or, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I won't be able to help this time." And even though it might feel uncomfortable at first, with practice, you will gain confidence and realize that you are not responsible for other people's feelings, only for how you take care of yourself. And that mindset shift is life-changing.
Yes, and one more thing I want to add is that by stopping the habit of trying to please everyone, you also create space for your own dreams and passions to grow. Because when your time and energy are not scattered in too many directions trying to meet everyone's demands, you can focus on what truly matters to you, whether that's learning English, starting a new career, or spending quality time with your loved ones. And this focused energy leads to better results and more satisfaction in your daily life. So remember, saying no is not closing doors. It's opening the door to your own priorities and happiness.
I love that, Julia. To end this part, I want to remind our listeners that boundaries are a gift you give yourself and others. They help create respect, clarity, and peace. And when you practice setting boundaries with kindness and honesty, you build stronger, healthier relationships that support your growth instead of draining your energy. So please take this habit seriously and watch how your life transforms when you stop trying to please everyone and start living for yourself. One of the most freeing decisions I made in my life was to stop comparing myself to others constantly, because I realized that comparing my progress, my skills, or my achievements to those of other people was like chasing a moving target that only made me feel frustrated, discouraged, and sometimes even jealous. And what many people don't understand is that every person's journey is unique and shaped by different experiences, challenges, and opportunities. So by focusing too much on what others have or do, you lose sight of your own strengths and the unique path that you are meant to follow. And once I accepted this truth, I was able to appreciate my own small successes and keep moving forward without unnecessary pressure or self-doubt.
That's a very important lesson, Adam, because comparing ourselves to others is a common trap in today's world, especially with social media showing only the best moments of people's lives, making us believe that everyone else is perfect or more successful. But the reality behind those pictures and stories is much more complex. And often people are facing their own struggles that are not visible to the outside world. So instead of comparing yourself to an incomplete picture, it's much healthier to focus on your own progress, celebrate your personal milestones, and understand that growth is a slow process that takes time, patience, and self-compassion.
Exactly, Julia. And I also learned that comparison steals joy because it creates a false sense of competition where none exists. And when you compare yourself to others, you judge your worth based on someone else's standards instead of your own values, which leads to unnecessary stress and lowers your self-esteem. But when you stop this habit, you allow yourself to be your authentic self, to focus on what truly matters to you, and to measure your success by your own goals and happiness. And this mindset creates a positive cycle of confidence and motivation that helps you achieve more and enjoy life fully without feeling like you're falling behind.
Another important point is that when you stop comparing yourself to others, you free up your mental energy to invest in learning new skills, practicing more, and improving yourself every day. And this kind of self-focused growth is much more effective and rewarding than trying to keep up with someone else's pace or achievements, because you are working at your own rhythm, respecting your own limits, and celebrating your unique talents. And this approach helps build long-term success and satisfaction that cannot be measured by external comparisons.
To help our listeners practice this habit, I suggest a simple exercise. Whenever you catch yourself comparing to someone else, pause and ask, "What progress have I made today?" Or, "What is one thing I did well recently?" Focusing on your own growth rather than someone else's story can change your mindset and boost your confidence. And remember, your journey is yours alone, and the best thing you can do is to keep moving forward step by step, trusting that your hard work and dedication will lead to success that is meaningful and fulfilling to you. One of the most important changes that helped me move forward in life was learning to stop dwelling on my past mistakes and failures, because I realized that constantly thinking about what I did wrong or where I failed only kept me stuck in feelings of regret and guilt, which drained my energy and made it difficult to focus on the present moment or future opportunities. And I came to understand that mistakes are a natural and necessary part of learning and growth. So instead of wasting time beating myself up over the past, I started using those experiences as valuable lessons that could guide me to make better decisions and improve myself, which freed me from the heavy burden of self-criticism and opened the door to new possibilities and confidence.
That's a powerful habit to develop, Adam, because many people feel trapped by their past failures, thinking that one mistake defines their entire life or limits their potential. But the truth is that every successful person has made mistakes, faced challenges, and experienced setbacks along the way. And what sets them apart is not perfection, but the ability to learn from those moments and keep moving forward. And when you stop dwelling on the past, you give yourself permission to grow, heal, and focus your energy on creating a better present and future, which leads to greater happiness and achievement.
I remember a time when I was learning English and made so many errors that I felt embarrassed and wanted to give up. But then I changed my mindset and saw those mistakes as opportunities to improve rather than failures to avoid. And that simple shift made a huge difference because I was no longer afraid to speak or practice. And this attitude helped me improve faster and build my confidence. And it's important for all our listeners to realize that mistakes do not define you. They are stepping stones on your path to success. So embrace them, learn from them, and then let them go.
Exactly, Adam. And I want to encourage our listeners to practice forgiveness toward themselves whenever they feel stuck in the past, because being kind to yourself is essential for healing and growth. And you can start by writing down one mistake that bothers you. Then write what you learned from it. And finally, write a statement of forgiveness to yourself. Like, I forgive myself for this mistake, and I am growing stronger every day. And repeating this practice can help release negative emotions and replace them with positive energy that supports your progress and well-being.
Yes, Julia. And to add to that, focusing on the present moment and setting clear goals for the future helps keep your mind from wandering back to the past. Because when you have a clear vision of where you want to go, and you take small, consistent steps toward that vision, you naturally become less concerned about past mistakes and more excited about future possibilities. And this forward-looking mindset creates momentum and motivation that will carry you through challenges and keep you growing every day. One of the most transformative habits I developed on my journey to a better life was learning to stop the negative self-talk that constantly ran through my mind. Because for a long time, I didn't realize how much my inner voice was hurting my confidence and limiting my potential. Every time I made a mistake or faced a challenge, my thoughts would immediately turn critical and discouraging, telling me I wasn't good enough, smart enough, or capable enough to succeed. And this cycle of negative self-talk became a barrier that prevented me from taking risks, trying new things, and believing in myself. But once I became aware of this destructive habit, I started to replace those harsh thoughts with positive affirmations and kind words, which helped me gradually change the way I saw myself and what I believed was possible. And this shift in mindset opened doors I never thought I could reach.
That's a crucial habit to change, Adam, because so many people struggle with inner criticism without even realizing it. And this negative self-talk often happens automatically and unconsciously, like a habit we don't choose but simply follow. And it can affect every area of life, from relationships to career to learning. Because when you constantly tell yourself you can't do something or you're not worthy, your brain starts to believe it and creates self-fulfilling prophecies that limit your success and happiness. So becoming aware of your inner dialogue and actively choosing to speak kindly to yourself is a powerful way to build resilience, confidence, and motivation. And it's something that anyone can practice with patience and consistency.
I remember many times when I would catch myself thinking, I'm not good enough to speak English fluently, or I will never improve because I make too many mistakes. But once I learned to notice those thoughts and consciously change them into positive statements like, I am improving every day, or mistakes help me learn and grow, I felt a huge difference in my motivation and progress. And this practice of positive self-talk didn't happen overnight. It took daily effort and repetition, but over time it rewired my brain to focus on possibilities rather than limitations. And this new mindset helped me face challenges with courage and confidence, knowing that my value is not defined by my mistakes or fears, but by my persistence and willingness to grow.
Exactly, Adam. And one practical way to stop negative self-talk is to treat yourself like a good friend who needs encouragement rather than criticism. Because most of us are much kinder to others than to ourselves. So when you notice a negative thought, ask yourself, would I say this to someone I care about? If the answer is no, then try to replace that thought with something supportive and true, such as, I am learning, I am worthy of success, or I deserve happiness and respect. And writing these affirmations down and repeating them daily can reinforce positive beliefs and gradually weaken the hold of negative self-talk, making it easier to believe in yourself and take action toward your goals.
Another important aspect is to be patient and gentle with yourself during this process, because old habits of negative thinking don't disappear quickly. They have often been building for years, so it's natural to have setbacks or moments of doubt. But what matters is your commitment to keep practicing kindness toward yourself and to recognize progress, no matter how small. And by doing this, you create a positive feedback loop where confidence grows and fear shrinks. And this shift not only improves your mental health, but also enhances your ability to learn, communicate, and succeed in every part of your life, making this habit one of the most powerful tools for lasting change.
I completely agree, Adam. I also want to remind our listeners that negative self-talk is often rooted in past experiences or messages we received from others. So part of stopping this habit is understanding where those thoughts come from and challenging their truth, because many negative beliefs are simply false stories. We tell ourselves that don't reflect reality, and by questioning and replacing them with positive, realistic thoughts, you free yourself from mental chains that hold you back, and you create a mental environment where growth, happiness, and success can flourish naturally. So keep practicing, be patient, and remember that you are worthy of love and respect just as you are.
One of the most important lessons I learned on my journey toward personal growth and happiness was to stop living in fear of failure, because I realized that this fear was like an invisible cage holding me back from trying new things, taking risks, and reaching my full potential. I used to worry so much about making mistakes or disappointing others that I would avoid challenges and opportunities altogether, which kept me stuck in the same place for a long time. But once I understood that failure is not the end, but actually a necessary step toward success, I began to welcome challenges and see setbacks as valuable experiences that teach important lessons. And this mindset shift freed me from the paralyzing fear that once controlled my decisions, allowing me to grow stronger, more confident, and more resilient every day.
That's such a powerful shift, Adam, because many people let fear of failure stop them from pursuing their dreams or even learning new skills like English. But failure is really just feedback. It's a sign that you are trying, learning, and moving forward. And the truth is that every successful person has failed many times before reaching their goals. So instead of avoiding failure, we should embrace it as part of the process. And when you stop fearing failure, you open yourself to new possibilities and experiences that you might never have imagined before. And this attitude helps build courage, creativity, and a growth mindset that keeps you moving even when things get difficult.
I remember when I first started speaking English, I was terrified of making mistakes and sounding silly in front of others, so I avoided speaking as much as I could. But then I realized that the only way to improve was to practice, make mistakes, and learn from them. And once I accepted that failure was part of the journey, I began to enjoy the learning process more and gained confidence little by little. And I want all our listeners to know that it's okay to fail. It's okay to stumble, and it's okay to ask for help, because every step, even the difficult ones, brings you closer to your goals.
Yes, Adam. And one way to stop living in fear of failure is to change the way you define success and failure. Instead of seeing failure as something negative or shameful, try to see it as an opportunity to learn, grow, and improve, and also celebrate the courage it takes to try something new, regardless of the outcome. Because trying itself is a victory. And this positive perspective helps reduce anxiety, builds resilience, and encourages you to keep moving forward even when the path is not easy or clear.
I also want to add that setting small, realistic goals can help reduce the fear of failure, because when you break down big tasks into manageable steps, you feel more in control and less overwhelmed. And each small success builds your confidence and motivates you to keep going. And remember, the path to success is rarely a straight line. It's full of twists, turns, and setbacks. But with persistence and a positive mindset, failure becomes just another step on your journey rather than a roadblock. And this realization can change your life in amazing ways. One of the most important changes I made in my life was learning to stop trying to please everyone around me, because I realized that this habit was draining my energy and making me lose sight of my own values, needs, and goals. For a long time, I felt pressured to say yes to every request, avoid conflict at all costs, and seek approval from others. But this constant need for approval left me feeling exhausted, stressed, and sometimes resentful. And I understood that it's impossible to make everyone happy all the time. So by setting healthy boundaries and focusing on what truly matters to me, I started to feel more peaceful, confident, and in control of my life. And this change allowed me to invest more time and energy in things that bring me joy and growth, instead of trying to meet others' expectations.
That's such an important lesson, Adam, because many people struggle with the need to be liked or accepted by everyone. And this can lead to saying yes when they really want to say no, sacrificing their own priorities, and feeling unhappy or overwhelmed. But learning to say no respectfully and kindly is a form of self-care and self-respect. And it helps create clearer relationships where people understand your limits and appreciate you for who you are rather than who they want you to be. And by focusing on your own happiness and well-being, you can live a more authentic and fulfilling life that attracts genuine connections and opportunities.
I remember when I first started practicing this habit, it was difficult to say no because I feared disappointing others or being judged. But I realized that setting boundaries actually improved my relationships because people respected my honesty and clarity, and I felt less stressed and more motivated. And this taught me that pleasing everyone is not a realistic or healthy goal, but pleasing yourself by living true to your values and goals creates a strong foundation for success and happiness. And I encourage all our listeners to practice saying no when they need to, and to trust that focusing on their own well-being is not selfish, but necessary for growth and balance.
Yes, Adam. And one practical tip is to pause before answering requests, especially when you feel pressured to say yes immediately, and take a moment to consider if it aligns with your priorities, energy, and goals. And it's okay to say something like, "Let me think about it and get back to you," which gives you time to make a thoughtful decision without stress. And remember that setting boundaries is a skill that takes practice, but brings freedom and peace once you get comfortable with it. And by doing so, you create space for the things and people that truly matter in your life.
Exactly, Julia. And I want to remind our listeners that your time and energy are valuable resources that should be invested wisely. And when you stop trying to please everyone, you open the door to greater focus, creativity, and joy, because you are living in alignment with your true self and purpose. And this habit, like the others we discussed today, requires patience, self-awareness, and courage. But the rewards are well worth the effort, leading to a life that feels meaningful, balanced, and fulfilling in every way. Now that we've talked about 10 important habits to stop, it's just as important to think about how to maintain these positive changes in your life over time, because change is not a one-time event. It's a continuous journey that requires effort, patience, and awareness every day. And many people start with great motivation, but then find it hard to stay consistent. So today, Julia, let's share some simple, practical tips that our listeners can use to keep moving forward and build lasting success, even when life gets busy or challenging.
Absolutely, Adam. One of the first tips is to create daily reminders of your goals and the changes you want to make, because our minds can easily forget or get distracted by stress and routine. So writing down your goals on sticky notes, setting alarms on your phone, or even using an app that tracks your habits can help keep your intentions fresh in your mind. And this simple practice creates focus and helps you stay accountable to yourself without feeling overwhelmed.
Yes. And another very effective strategy is to celebrate small wins along the way, no matter how small they seem, because celebrating progress boosts your motivation and happiness, and it reminds you that change is possible and worthwhile. And this can be as simple as saying, "Well done" to yourself, sharing your achievement with a friend, or rewarding yourself with something you enjoy. And these positive reinforcements help keep your momentum strong.
I also recommend building a support system by sharing your goals and challenges with trusted friends, family members, or even online communities that focus on personal growth or English learning. Because having people who encourage you, cheer for you, and hold you accountable can make a huge difference when you feel discouraged or stuck. And talking about your journey helps you reflect and get new ideas for overcoming obstacles.
Another important tip is to practice self-compassion, especially when you face setbacks or make mistakes, because it's natural to encounter difficulties, and being kind to yourself instead of harshly judging your failures helps you recover faster and keeps your motivation alive. And remember, no one is perfect, and every step forward, even small or slow ones, is progress worth acknowledging and valuing.
Finally, it's helpful to regularly review and adjust your goals and habits, because as you grow, your priorities and circumstances might change. So revisiting what works and what doesn't allows you to stay flexible and make changes that fit your life better. And this approach prevents frustration and burnout and keeps your journey enjoyable and effective.
So, to sum up, maintaining positive changes involves daily reminders, celebrating small wins, building a support system, practicing self-compassion, and regularly reviewing your progress. And by applying these simple but powerful strategies, our listeners can keep growing and improving in English learning and in life, creating habits that bring lasting happiness and success. Julia, one of the biggest challenges we all face when trying to change our habits or learn something new, like English, is staying motivated when things get difficult, because no journey is always smooth. There will be moments when progress feels slow, mistakes happen, or life gets overwhelming, and during those times, it's easy to feel discouraged and want to give up. But learning how to stay motivated through these struggles is key to long-term success and happiness. So today, let's share some useful tips that can help our listeners keep their motivation strong even when the going gets tough.
Absolutely, Adam. The first tip I always suggest is to remind yourself why you started your journey in the first place. Because having a clear reason or purpose behind your goals gives you a source of strength and direction when you feel tired or frustrated. And this reason can be simple, like wanting to improve your job opportunities, connect with new friends, or just feel proud of yourself. And keeping this why in your mind helps you push through difficult days.
Yes, and another helpful strategy is to break big goals into smaller, manageable steps, because sometimes the size of a goal can feel overwhelming and make you lose motivation. But when you focus on small tasks, like learning 5 new words a day or practicing speaking for 10 minutes, it feels achievable, and completing these small steps gives you a sense of accomplishment that fuels your motivation to keep going.
I also think it's important to change your environment or routine when you feel stuck, because doing the same thing every day can become boring or stressful. So trying a new learning method, listening to English songs, watching a favorite show with subtitles, or practicing with a friend can make the process more fun and interesting. And this variety can refresh your mind and increase your desire to continue learning.
Another tip is to practice positive self-talk and avoid negative thoughts that can kill motivation. Because when you say things like, "I'm not good enough," or "I can't do this," your brain starts to believe it. But when you replace those thoughts with encouraging ones like, "I'm improving every day," or "mistakes help me learn," you create a positive mindset that supports your progress. And this change in thinking can make a huge difference.
Finally, it's okay to take breaks and rest when you need to, because pushing yourself too hard without rest can lead to burnout, which is one of the biggest enemies of motivation. So listen to your body and mind, relax, do something you enjoy, and come back to your goals with fresh energy and enthusiasm. because motivation isn't about being perfect every day. It's about persistence over time.
So to wrap up this section, staying motivated during difficult times is possible by remembering your reasons, breaking goals into small steps, changing your routine, practicing positive self-talk, and allowing yourself rest. And if our listeners use these tips, they'll find it easier to keep moving forward, no matter what challenges come their way. As we come to the end of this episode, Julia, it's amazing to reflect on how much change can happen when we simply stop certain habits that hold us back. The 10 things we talked about today, from stopping negative self-talk and dwelling on past mistakes, to letting go of fear of failure and the need to please everyone, are not small or easy changes to make, but they are incredibly powerful in transforming our mindset, our actions, and ultimately, our lives. Each habit represents a choice to free ourselves from mental barriers and focus on growth, positivity, and self-respect. And I truly believe that anyone listening today can start making these changes step by step at their own pace and begin to feel the difference in their confidence, happiness, and success.
Absolutely, Adam. The key message for our listeners is that change starts with awareness and choice. You don't need to do everything perfectly or immediately, but by recognizing the habits that no longer serve you and making a conscious decision to stop them, you create space for better habits to grow. It's a journey, and every small effort counts. Remember, it's okay to ask for help, to take breaks, and to celebrate your progress no matter how slow it feels, because growth is not a race, but a lifelong process. And for those learning English or any new skill, these habits can also help reduce frustration and keep motivation strong by creating a positive and supportive inner environment.
Well said, Julia. And for our listeners, I encourage you to reflect on which of these habits you relate to the most and choose one to work on first. Write it down, make a plan, and remind yourself daily that change is possible. Use positive self-talk, be patient with yourself, and remember that setbacks are part of the process, not reasons to give up. Over time, these small but consistent efforts will add up and lead to big improvements in your life. And don't forget, you are not alone on this journey. Many people face these same challenges, and together, we can support and inspire each other to become our best selves.
Thank you all for listening to this long but important episode of the English Globe. We hope that our conversation today gave you useful ideas and encouragement to start making positive changes in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our channel, share it with friends who might benefit, and leave a comment about which habit you want to work on first. We love hearing from you and supporting your English learning journey and personal growth. Until next time, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember that every day is a new opportunity to improve and shine.
Exactly, Julia. Thanks again for joining us. And remember, small changes lead to big results. Keep going, keep growing, and we'll see you in the next episode of The English Globe.